Coming up on today's crossover episode, Locked On Bucks and Locked On Thunder, we preview the NBA Cup final between the Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder, the old versus the new, the matchups to keep an eye on, and what has really worked so well for both of these teams so far this season. We dig into that coming up next here on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the show. It's Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined as always by Camille Davis, and we have somebody from enemy territory as well we'll get to in just a moment. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day and for checking out the Locked On Bucks newsletter, free and available every single day. Sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com to get your day started with the all-new and free Locked On Bucks newsletter. Today's episode is brought to you by the college football playoffs. They are here. You don't want to miss a moment of the action. The college football playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Well, as I mentioned, it is the NBA Cup final. I don't think one of the teams that is in this is a total surprise here, but maybe a bit of a surprise for the Milwaukee Bucks, but still should be a heavyweight matchup here. And to help us break this down and learn what to expect from the Oklahoma City Thunder, and we hope to do the same about the Bucks, he covers the Thunder on a daily basis. You can find the show Locked On Thunder. Rylan Stiles joining us. And Rylan, I guess let's just start with this Oklahoma City Thunder team. So it's a team that obviously got a lot of attention coming into the season. They were the 1 seed in the West last year. They had a terrific offseason. They're young. They seem to check all the boxes. And so far, 25 or so games into the season, we've seen nothing to lead you off of that path. But what has been the biggest key to their success so far?
Yeah, I think that it does start on the defensive end with the best defense in the NBA because they're able to force these historic turnover numbers where they've forced more turnovers, than more steals than they have turnovers themselves. Like they've protected the ball and they've gotten steals on the other end, and it's led to fast break opportunities with such a young team who's very versatile. Every player is live with the ball, so no matter who gets the turnover or the rebound, they can push it ahead, and it just creates this mismatch for other teams. And then when you get into the half-court offense, you have the best scorer in the NBA, one of them in SGA, who's able to navigate through traffic and put up points at will. And then all you need from there is a little bit more. And you get that from J-Dub. You get that from some of their more peripheral players like Isaiah Joe shooting threes. Cason Wallace has games. Alex Caruso could step up as well. So I just think it's the defense that starts everything. And then offensively, they have a clear identity of Shai has improved as a playmaker. So he's getting the ball out to his teammates in better spots this year. And he's just one of the best scorers in the league. So it's really tough to shut this team down.
I'm someone who loves the mid-range game, so I love watching SGA play, and I feel like how his game has evolved in addition to the mid-range game is like he gets to the free throw line a lot. Like the Thunder as a whole don't as a team, but SGA is very skilled now at getting to that free throw line. But you mentioned Alex Caruso, one of your offseason additions. I want to ask about another one of those, and that's Isaiah Hartenstein. Because last year, one of the things with the Thunder is like they're a really good team. They're a little small. And when you guys picked up Hartenstein from the Knicks, I was like, I really like that pickup for the Thunder. Now, he had some injury luck to start the year, and now that he's back, Chet is out. But what has he added to this Thunder team with his size and ability as a big who can really crash the boards?
Yeah, it's been the best signing that you could ever have because not only does he have a quick fix for the lack of size, and he gives you a different element. Chet, obviously 7 feet tall, but Isaiah, not only 7 feet tall, but he's a big body at 255 pounds, and he can just wipe you away on screens. He can muscle you out of the way, getting rebounds. But the interesting part of the signing was the day that they signed him, Sam Presti said that they would have signed him if he was 6'7". Like they didn't have much to do with the fact he's 7 foot. And you can kind of laugh that off until you see it happen in game. And through 10 games, he's been a Thunder player first who just so happens to be this massive giant. And there's only a handful of guys in the NBA who could play switchable defense, who can be live on the ball and make great passes and set the table, and who can do these thundery things that they look for. And you have two of those handful of players now, and Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein. And so I just think that the signing was great all around. But the way that he's able to protect the rim and clean the glass, you're now seeing a Thunder team who's used to being dominated at the rebound column and still winning 57 games. Now they can at least break even with only one of the two centers still. So if you can break even and you can create the massive turnover numbers that they have so far this year, you can see how it adds up to the best defense in the NBA. And then offensively, you're seeing him create space. And that's something that's been difficult for the Thunder at times, for especially their secondary unit, but even the starters. Like Jalen Williams is benefiting massively from Hartenstein just wiping away a defender and letting him get to his spots easier. Shai is benefiting from that as well, and having a guy who can set those screens and roll to the rim and be kind of a safety net for Shai, who likes to work inside, whereas Chet's more of a slip screen and pop out to the three-point line. So the different dimensions that you see from him as a screener cannot be undersold. He's the best screener the Thunder have had since Steven Adams. And I think he's a better screener than Adams was, because he's more, he has more options off of the screen than Adams did. And then you have the table setting. Like, number two issue with last year's team, as you mentioned, number one was size. Number two was getting someone that can set the table for the offense that's not named Shai. And I don't think anyone thought it'd come from a center, but it has. Like he's been able to be a high post hub and put guys in great spots and relieve some of that stress of J-Dub's not quite there yet as like a go-to playmaker. He's gotten a lot better this season, but he needs that additional boost. And it's been Hartenstein so far who's given that to him. So all around, he's just a great Thunder player who's also 7 feet, 255 pounds.
You go back to the last, year and a half that he was with the Clippers, where you really started to see this emerge in his game. And then obviously what he did with the Knicks last year, where he was that hub and the two-man game with he and Jalen Brunson. And to your point, too, of what Sam Presti said, of if he was 6'7", we would have targeted him. He's talked at length, too, about his dad working with him on his game when he was a kid and bringing him up as a ball handler, even though he had the size to really round out all aspects of his game. That it was, I don't know if you can even say under the radar, but that was the name that I think a lot of people were looking at, is I wonder where Hartenstein ends up when the Knicks cap situation became what it was. And to see him go to a team that was already loaded certainly induced a lot of groans from Western Conference teams. But we've talked a bit about what's really worked for the Thunder. Obviously, there is not an apparent weakness, or at least one that's incredibly visible here. So who are the types of teams that have given this team the most difficulty?
Well, the Thunder have lost 5 games, and they've beaten everybody that they've lost to. So it's a interesting look at this season so far. And they've had losses like to Dallas, where they lost with J-Dub starting at center, and they have had losses to Golden State, where Chet leaves 5 minutes into the game and the place is just dejected. So whenever you parse through all that, even in the wins, whenever the wins have been a little bit too close to call, there's been a consistent theme of, if you can pack the paint, force the ball out of Shai's hands, make J-Dub uncomfortable, and J-Dub gets really uncomfortable whenever you play physical with him. So if you have a physical defender to put on J-Dub, that can hinder his offense. When those things happen, your best bet is to do those things to force them to kick out to Lou Dort, to kick out to Cason Wallace, to kick out to Wiggins and Joe, and these guys who are good players, but they're also inconsistent players. Like Lou Dort, he's been named Big Game Lou by this locker room because he does step up a lot of the times in big games, like he did on Saturday night from 3. But on the law of averages, you'd still rather have Lou Dort shooting a 3 than letting SGA play on one-on-one and getting downhill. So it's kind of packing all that in and forcing Joe and Wallace and Dort to beat you. The reason they're 20-5, though, is because they are capable of beating you. But it's a less sure thing than just letting SGA and J-Dub work on the perimeter.
Yeah, no real weaknesses, and it's kind of pick your poison too. Of, I guess we'll let this shooter take the shot, even though, as you mentioned, they're still hitting at a pretty high volume, and it is very much pick your poison with this team. So,
and if you can protect the basketball, you're going to be able to win, because the Thunder, especially whenever they have to take Shai off the floor, which even in these cup games, Mark is not treating them like a playoff game. And even in the playoffs, he played 10 guys, by the way. But nonetheless, he's not like playing Shai 40 minutes a night in these cup games, especially in an 83rd game. So he's going to be off the floor. And at that time, you can see the half court Thunder offense stagnate. And so if you're not turning the ball over to give them fast break points, then they're going to have to really labor for points. And that's where you can catch up or grow a lead whenever Shai's not in the game. And that's kind of been a part that's doomed the Thunder at times, even in wins where they've had to recover.
It's funny that you mentioned the 83rd game and kind of preserving things for a young team versus what the Bucks are going to be dealing with. We've dove in a bit to the Oklahoma City Thunder, so we're going to take a look at the Bucks in this matchup and some key matchups to take a look at in this game as well. We'll get into that conversation coming up next. Time to talk to you now about FanDuel. It is time to tackle the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, so the other team that's playing, the Milwaukee Bucks, I guess I'm curious on your perspective and any questions that you have for the two of us. But how surprised are you, number one, that the Milwaukee Bucks are the Eastern Conference representative?
So I'm a little surprised because of just the roller coaster season it's felt like from the outside that Milwaukee has had. It's like the first couple of weeks of the season, every single NBA podcast is like, the Bucks are done. What's going on? Giannis is going to Houston. Like, it's just over. And then all of a sudden, here they are at a more stable, at a more stable point. What do you think has led to that turnaround of just becoming to where it went from Giannis to Houston to, okay, this team's in the Cup Finals. This team is back in contention. They're pretty good.
I think one of the first things we should say is it seems that whenever anything, even a hint of something seems like it's wrong in Milwaukee, there are all these wild Giannis trade rumors. Like, Giannis, listen, Houston, stop it. No, I'm playing. But I think one of the biggest changes has just been this team getting more connected, understanding their roles and playing better, in addition to having a more solid rotation. Doc Rivers has mentioned trying to find the right combination of guys, and it seems at this point that we've landed on a really good combo with Andre Jackson Jr. being turned into the starting lineup. Having a defensive stopper at the point of attack has been very important for them, in addition to AJ Green coming off the bench with his three-pointing shooting prowess, as well as the ability to play some defense. More than anything, though, you have your Giannis and your Dame who look a lot more comfortable this year than they did last season. Giannis has been the consistent force that he has been for the last couple of years for this Bucks team. We saw it especially last year with Dame coming onto the team and Giannis being that engine. And this year, he's added that mid-range into his game a bit more. We've been seeing the defense pick up from Giannis and Brook Lopez in tandem. And the team seems like they're getting more used to the new defensive scheme that they have to be running right now. And then over the last couple of games, you have the return of Chris Middleton, which helps out the bench units a bit more with his playmaking ability and just getting his chemistry together with Giannis and Dame. But I think like the connectivity of the unit, understanding their roles and understanding what the right rotations are like the major key points, I would say, for the Bucks. Is there anything you would add to that, Justin?
I mean, I agree with all of it, but I would distill it even more and just say Giannis has played like an MVP again. And Camille and I and everybody that covers the team talked so much last year about his efficiency and, 30 points a game and shooting 60% from the field. And that's the most notable thing about Giannis's game the last at least 2 years, maybe 3 years, would you say, Camille, is his shot diet and what he's cleaned up, that he's really put in a lot of work on the mid-range shot. He's worked with different coaches in the offseason on that. And now Vin Baker is kind of his personal coach on the staff as well. And Vin Baker, if you're old enough to remember his days with the Bucks and the Sonics and the Celtics, that was his shot. He was a baseline jumper, mid-range type of big that could do that. So that's been a big part of it, but he's eliminated a lot of the inefficient shots. It would induce the groans and like, why is Giannis taking threes? Like, he's on pace to attempt a career low in 3-point attempts. So he's found his efficiency or continued to get that efficiency, but guys are also making shots. And, the points Camille made about the defense and the influx of youth that they've needed, that's really helped them out there. That's been a big part of it. But during that 2-8 stretch, nobody was shooting. Like the Bucks had AJ Green and Taurean Prince, who were both above 50% on threes. But as a team, they were shooting like 29% on threes with those two guys doing what they did. So it just showed, man, no one is hitting shots. And that was kind of the message from Doc Rivers too, is look, this is not what we expected. We're going to make the playoffs. Whenever it was, like when they fell to 2-8, I think it was, Camille, and somebody pointed out hey, historically, there's only been X amount of teams that have made the playoffs when they started. And Doc Rivers immediately cut it off and said, we're going to make the playoffs. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, I recognize this is where we thought we would be, but we haven't hit shots. We haven't had Chris Middleton. We've had a pretty decent run of bad luck. And all of that is seemingly corrected over the last 6 weeks. So it's not to say problem solved and this team is going to be headed to the NBA Finals. There's still some things they need to work on. But to me, it's been a handful of little things. It's been shooting variances that have swung back in their favor. And Giannis has been really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of Giannis, this might be a little bit of a tease for our next segment, but we both covered guys that seem unstoppable, and it's like no matter what you do, they're going to get their numbers. But there are little intricacies that you can do to make it harder on them. Like for Shai, if you can blitz him and get a body into him without fouling, that makes him really uncomfortable. It's going to make it harder. He started 1 for 8 against Houston on Saturday, largely because of those blitzes and things of that nature. And then he turned it around, still got a great stat line, but he did start 1 for 8. And so with Giannis, the Thunder have two different kind of ways they could attack him. They could go with J-Dub on him and use Isaiah Hartenstein as a roamer. They could go straight to Hartenstein on him whenever you can let Hartenstein sag off from 3. Which of those two kind of options of a smaller guy, a bigger guy, has given Giannis more trouble? If anyone has given Giannis trouble, because he's been excellent.
I wonder if it's neither of what you named. And I wonder if it's Lou Dort that we see on Giannis, because those are the guys that if you have the acreage and if you're stout enough and quick enough, those are the guys that have given him the most fits, like Marcus Smart back in the day, those types of guys. So I really wonder if we see Lou Dort, and if you just pick some of those other guys and say, let's look at the rest of the roster. Andre Jackson Jr., whoever, and it's tough. It's like looking for a needle in a haystack with the Thunder's defenders, but whoever you deem as this is the guy that is probably the least efficient of the group of defenders we have, that's who's going to go on Ajax. But it's been the smaller guys where you use your bigs as the help. A lot of the ways that the Bucks have used Giannis, to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because when I think of the Hartenstein matchup, like that's a Brook Lopez matchup in my mind, where you put him on Brook and then you use one of the smaller defenders on Giannis. Normally a diet of different guys to give him different looks, because one thing with Giannis is when he sees the same thing consistently, he tends to be able to figure out, to your point about how SGA, like he could start slow, but he's going to find a way to finish with his numbers. And that's something that Giannis can do as well. So I would think a smaller guy, a Lou Dort, maybe Jalen Williams, get some run on him as well, but a combination, and as well as showing multiple bodies at him and trying to force Giannis to get the ball out of his hand. And as we record this, I mean, Dame had a little calf injury from the Hawks game, but he said he will be playing during the final game. Chris Middleton's status is kind of up in the air right now with an illness. So it could be a lot more on Giannis's shoulders. And with that, I could see the Thunder just trying, like, hey, if we can get someone else besides him, and if Dame's not feeling all the way right, like, let's get the ball out of his hand as quickly as possible.
I like that chess match. If you have J-Dub, Hartenstein, Lou Dort, Caruso, all these guys that can give different looks while doing the same basic things to try to deter Giannis. And then one of the last questions I had was, the Thunder have been giving up plenty of role player big games, like PJ Washington, the biggest example of it, because like they're going to have to do to Milwaukee, they're going to have to swarm into the paint to make life hard on them driving to the rim, and then rely on their athletic ability to fly out and defend corner threes. And it's just human nature that sometimes you're going to lapse whenever that's your style of play. Who could give the Thunder the most fits with that style of, if they get the ball kicked out to them, you feel pretty good?
Derry Bird. AJ Green is one of those top guys, as well as Taurean Prince, who is someone to watch. His minutes have declined with Middleton back in the lineup, which is to be expected. But if Middleton isn't there as well, that's more playing time for Taurean Prince. And as Justin mentioned earlier in the show, the two of them, they're two of the top 3-point shooters in the NBA. So if it's AJ Green, and he can shoot it from distance. So it's like he's not hugging a 3-point line. If you give him distance, he's going to take it. He has a quick trigger, not scared to shoot it. Taurean Prince has been a merchant from the corner. So like those are two guys in particular who I would highlight. And throw it out there, Brook Lopez as a trailer. If you guys are focusing on Giannis and you can kick it back out to Brook to kick up for an open three, he's not scared to shoot those either.
Yeah, it's I would probably say either Brook or Taurean Prince, just because they have both been relatively quiet of late, that you get the sense they're both due for a little bit of regression to the mean for both of those guys. But Taurean Prince, especially, catch and shoot is his game, and Derry Bird too with AJ Green. He's, I think, like 97% of his shots this season have come from three. So you know what you're getting when he is out there on the floor. There's one other name we didn't mention with how to defend Giannis that has a decent amount of experience at it. So we'll get into that, and also some of the matchups that could be most important for both of these teams to keep an eye on in this NBA Cup final matchup that we have coming our way later on this evening. So we'll take a look at those matchups coming up after this here on Locked On Bucks. This next segment of Locked On Bucks is brought to you by Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. And time now to talk to you about our friends over at Rocket Money. Look, maybe you're one of those that you have numerous subscriptions that you have. Maybe you've forgotten about a few of them. That's where Rocket Money can step in to give you that assist. Find those subscriptions and things you're paying for that you may have forgotten about or didn't even realize you were doing so. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That is rocketmoney.com/locked-on. rocketmoney.com/locked-on. The other name I would mention too is Alex Caruso. Has a decent amount of experience against Giannis, and especially that playoff series a couple of years ago with the Bucks and the Bulls. Alex Caruso gave Giannis a lot of fits with that. And he's one of the more interesting guys with the Thunder too, because I mentioned, when the Thunder got Isaiah Hartenstein in the offseason, a lot of people were like, man, really? Like, what else do they need that they're getting him? It was the same, weeks prior to that when you had the Alex Caruso trade that cost you no future assets essentially, and just Josh Giddey. But it's been very interesting because you would understand better than Camille or I, but you kind of get the sense you're picking your spots and preserving them, and know like the importance of Alex Caruso is this is another piece we can roll out there in the clutch in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think though with Caruso, I think they really like him off the bench, as we talked about in the last segment with Giannis, of like changing up his looks, getting to start Dort on Giannis, and then he thinks that Ludort's coming out the game and it's just Caruso coming in to give him more fits. That's a weapon that few teams can actually deploy, and the Thunder can. And then he's had a hip injury that he's dealt with on and off this season, which is why his games played number is pretty low. And you're right. This is a guy who I struggle to say injury prone. There's not been like some massive injuries, but he has been being banged up and bruised up plenty throughout his career. That's kept him out a week or two here, a week or two there. And that's just the nature of how hard he plays and the defensive focus of his game. You're going to be taking shots. You're going to be diving on the floor. You're going to be playing physical. So resting him throughout spurts of this regular season, not the worst thing in the world for a team 20-5. And they know that his biggest, attributes will be in the postseason whenever the game gets into the half court and you have another defender and you have someone who can shoot 40% from three in the half court for yourself, to where last year you got the, ignore Josh Giddey. You can't outright ignore Alex Caruso when he's in the game, and that really helps the spacing. So as long as he's healthy in the postseason, that's all that really matters. And he's been able to try to find his spots. I think he's had a little bit of trouble playing in this unique style of offense where, they're passing up good shots for great shots on almost every possession. And there's not really defined roles because they trust everybody to create and to drive off the catch. And it's not just like, hey, you stand here and you shoot when the ball gets thrown to you. Otherwise, don't do anything else. So I think he's having a little bit of trouble adjusting to that. But he's gotten more and more comfortable as the season's progressed. And of course, in the mix has been injuries. That doesn't help things either. But I do think that he's been as good as advertised for Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that learning curve, like you need time for teams to come together. We love saying it's not NBA 2K. Like it takes time to develop that chemistry, figure out systems. But going into this finals matchup, NBA Cup Finals matchup, to be clear, between the Bucks and the Thunder. What matchup are you most looking forward to or most interested in, Rylan? Because when you look at all the things that the Thunder do well, they match up really well with this Bucks team, who, again, we've talked about them being a bit older, slower, less athletic than other teams here. Doc Rivers made the joke that all the other three teams, coming to Vegas were young, running into Vegas, and here come the Bucks in their wheelchairs rolling in to Vegas. So which matchup is most interesting to you between the Thunder and the Bucks?
Yeah, I think that it's Dame and Giannis, and they've played a little bit more together, it seems like, from the outside looking in, of playing off each other and pick and roll and stuff. And the Thunder being so willing to switch everything in the pick and roll and trusting all their defenders, it could lead to mismatches in either direction. Of either Dame now has a guy on an island who he'd prefer over Dort, Case, and Caruso out there, or Giannis is rolling and now a shorter defender's on him in the short roll and he can get the ball and go right to the rim and score. So that how the Thunder handle Giannis Dame pick and rolls and how often the Bucks use Giannis Dame pick and rolls, I think is one of the most interesting parts of this game.
The Dame matchup to me is I don't know if I'd say it's the most important for the Bucks, but it's up there, and it's the one that really has me the most interested because this is a big test. It goes without saying for the team, the way the Thunder are playing, but this is a big test for Dame too, because you look at back-to-back games against the Magic, the Hawks, and now the Thunder, and each of those teams has somebody at the point of attack, and not just one guy, but waves of guys. I think we saw it down the stretch. Granted, Dame hit big shots for the Bucks, as Camille and I have mentioned. Even though the efficiency hasn't been quite what you imagined, at least so far, you still look up and you think, man, Dame got to 28 points tonight, even when I saw him start 0 for 7 from the floor. So he still brings that threat. But I think we saw in the semifinals, Dyson Daniels and one guy after another that you were just throwing out there, Jalen Suggs against the Magic and all these other guys you're throwing out there, it can wear on you. And it's not going to be any easier against the Thunder.
I think that's the point that I'm looking forward to seeing in this matchup. It's just the level of physicality. I'm really interested in what the whistle is going to look like in this game as well, because the Thunder are a really physical defensive team. And I wonder how much leeway they're going to be able to have against the Bucks, because the Thunder also can be a team that can give up a lot of free throws. And the Bucks with Dame and with Giannis, two guys who love to exert their will. Giannis, getting to the rim, trying to get fouls that way. And Dame being able to try to pull up as soon as he feels that contact to try to get on the free throw line as well. So for me, it's kind of like that battle, what's the physicality level going to look like? Because that can also work in the Bucks' favor with Andre Jackson Jr., who is somebody who loves to be physical, get his hands on the opponent as well. And sometimes he can get into foul trouble. It's been a bit better this season than it was last year for him in his sophomore year here. But that's a matchup for me that I'm really looking to see.
Yeah, and you're looking at Cason Wallace likely going to be defending Dame. Cason has some of the quickest hands in the league, but he does love to go chest to chest with guys, and Dame could take advantage of that, getting to the line with feeling Kaysen swipe at the ball, get his hand caught in the cookie jar, and easy points comes from Milwaukee. So how does he handle that test? How does Dame handle Kaysen being on him? And again, there's no reprieve, if you will, for Dame, of like, if you don't want Kaysen on you, you call for a screen, and guess what? Now they're switching J-Dub on you, or Lou Dort on you, or whoever on you. There's no great matchup. So does Dame just want to go toe-to-toe with Kaysen? Does he ever feel like he should switch on to somebody else? Those things I think will be very interesting.
It is in many ways, it's just very unfair. The assets that the Thunder have one after another that they can throw at you. But I'm certainly very, very much looking forward to this matchup, just to see continued growth from the Bucks, because started 2-8, they've gone 12-3 since. And I know there's a lot that's been made over, but who have they actually beaten? Fine, but they've been top 10 in offense, defense, and net rating in those 15 games. And it started that stretch with competitive close games that they lost to the Celtics, the Cavs, and such. And they've beaten the Rockets now. They beat the Magic. They've started to beat good teams, but this would certainly be the best win of the season for the Bucks if they can get that done later on tonight out there in Las Vegas. But it's going to be a challenge at every single matchup that we've pointed to. If there's one guy outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander who Bucks fans should be pretty leery of having a big game for the Thunder, who would that be?
It would have to be either J-Dub or Lou Dort, because like we mentioned before, Lou Dort just has a knack for playing over his skis in games of this magnitude, as he did on Saturday. And whenever he's hitting threes and you have Shai doing what Shai's doing, you're in trouble, because it just feels so deflating to have the guy you're designing things, to go to. Like, you're funneling everything toward Lou Dort and letting him try to beat you. And then whenever he starts beating you, it is very deflating whenever that happens for other teams. So how would the Bucks handle that? But with J-Dub, it's going to have to be on him. He's the only other creator on this roster. He's someone who's going to have to get to his spots and take over games, and they really do a good job of staggering him and SGA to where it'll be J-Dub in there without Shai, and he's the only guy on those lineups who can score. And the Bucks are going to know that, and the Bucks are going to get to, I think, benefit from the game plan's really the same. It's just a diet version of SGA, where it's like SGA can do way more, but they both do it inside the arc. They both do it from the elbow in. And so your strategies and how you're set up doesn't necessarily change in these lineups with just J-Dub. So that's a benefit for the Bucks, not to be throwing a curveball there. But it's a big game, and it's something that J-Dub has to get comfortable in. He did not play well offensively in the playoffs last year in that second round series against Dallas. And he didn't have a good game against Dallas in the quarterfinal game in this Cup series. How does he do tonight against Milwaukee?
It'll be fun to see. Two teams that many people thought would be playing on Christmas Day who are not. We get our Christmas early with the NBA Cup Finals with the Bucks and the Thunder.
I mean, we're obviously but the Thunder being left off Christmas Day is even more egregious than the Bucks when you've come off 2 straight first-round losses. It's not like this Thunder team was going anywhere. It's the 1 seed last year and still a young team. So it's the Christmas Day snub bowl that we have later on tonight between the Bucks and the Thunder. Sharing the perspective on the Oklahoma City Thunder, you can find his work on Locked on Thunder. He is Rylan Stiles. Great to catch up with you, and hopefully we are in for a good one tonight for both of these teams. At least Camille and I at least hope for a competitive game.
Yeah, I think it'll be a competitive game. Hopefully we get to do this again in June.
Oh, that'll be fun.
Let's hope so. That will do it for today's show. We'll both be back, all of us, with recaps of this NBA Cup final coming up on our shows tomorrow. For Camille and for Rylan, I'm Justin. We'll talk to you guys once again tomorrow.